Hello, and welcome to the Bitcoin.review podcast, where we explore developments and projects with the people who actually make them happen. The show is supported by Pod 2.0, Sat Streaming, and CoinKite. If you're a new listener, I'm NVK. I run CoinKite, where we've been helping people secure their Bitcoins for over a decade. We make the COLDCARD and fun products like the block clock. You can find more information about it on coinkite.com. Hello, and welcome back to the Bitcoin.review podcast, the Bitcoin Socratic meetup with invite-only friends. Today I have with me, and let's just start with one thing. Privacy is not a crime. Mr. Rob Hamilton.
Hello, thanks for having me back.
Mr. Rijndael, it's been a while.
Yeah, great to be back. Sorry I've missed so many, but happy to be here.
I guess the cat is out of the bag.
It sure is.
Mr. Ben Carman.
Hey, yo, good to be back again.
Hey, guys. So a little bit of housekeeping here. People ask, so the Q shipping, we're about, I want to say about 3 weeks behind on the backlog, getting close. Thousands of devices shipped. So, and thus far, no brick units. So it's working. What else?
Wow, that's actually kind of amazing that you guys haven't had any DOA units.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, the cool thing is this was architected on purpose the way it was. It's essentially Mark IV with all the other crap we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So like we were trying to make it like de-risk this version for this, because we already had the new risks of the new hardware additions to it. So, there is stuff we want to change in the architecture in the future, but we wanted to sort of like take baby steps. I feel like I'm trying to sort of like channel myself into like how Apple sort of does hardware product development, where you try to make the things work right, and then sort of like you work towards new versions every couple of years or so, and it seems to work. All right, OpenSats. We received another mill from the Reynolds Foundation. Thank you, Alvaro, for making that happen. This is really cool because it helps us not be a private foundation because most of the funds come from Jack.
Yeah.
So that's a biggie, and there is more coming. There's a lot more coming. We're gonna have all the money in the world to fund all the open source in the world. Now, welcome to the new BIP Editors: Kinzer, Merch, Jonatak, Ruben, and Roast Beef. I think it's great. I think 5 is a minimum. For like, I think, I mentioned this on the mailing list very briefly. I still think that more would be better for this. I know people don't like to add too many people to things. I personally used to be very skeptical of having a lot of people, but it seems to work for OpenSats, where we have 9 board members. And I think that like when most people are somewhat aligned on the mission, it actually just becomes more people to do work and review, as opposed to people just arguing. The BIP systems is not meant to be an agreement of what gets activated or not. It's just a formal way of broadcasting your proposals that have passed a minimum threshold of quality and compatibility with Bitcoin, right? Like, it's not like you're putting a ERC20 token.
Well, and like, if you have to have a smaller number of more trusted people in this role, then maybe that's like the wrong job, right? Like the BIP editor isn't supposed to be passing judgment on like whether things are good or bad or are going to be implemented. It should be like a rate limiting, or like I don't even want to say curation, because that's like a little bit too judgy. It should just be like, does this meet the bar of what's in BIP 2? And if it does, you click the merge button. And so like that shouldn't be an editorial process.
I think that different stages of the Bitcoin project require different sort of levels of handling things. And I think that's like a big part of the problem with like Bitcoin Core and like the drama around Bitcoin Core is that like people tend to not evolve as the project evolve, right? So, in the early days, like having people like being complete like BIP assassins was helpful because it helped the project be more focused and prevent say like state actors from like trying to add stupid things that would break the project very early, right? But as the project evolves, as there's more interest, the project is more resilient now. So like, people are just simply not going to run the code if it's stupid.
Right.
So, it's okay to have more ideas proposed on the BIP system, right? I think this is great.
Yeah.
Well, there's also this thing where, I think a lot of people share the view that if you have a predictable formulaic process for like upgrading Bitcoin or introducing changes to Bitcoin, then that ultimately becomes like the target for the state actor to get the changes that they want into Bitcoin. Like you kind of want it to be this decentralized and chaotic process. And so if you have like a small number of people who are the only people who are allowed to like approve changes in the pipeline, then like that becomes the target for the attack or the capture.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
and up to this point we had two, right?
Yeah.
Where Luke can call step down, like, and that's obviously a bad wrong number. It's
Yeah.
not glorious, right? It's janitorial work, right? Like it's not you're not getting paid for it.
Not just that, it's like it's janitorial people throwing feces at you. Like it is not pleasant.
Yes, right. Like it's not a great spot to be in, and it shouldn't be a part of the developer process, which has any sort of restriction, right? Like being able to having to wait for a number isn't ideal because it's somewhat arbitrary. Once you cross the threshold of, hey, this code exists, it's a proposal, it has some baseline technical review, like put it out there. Lowering that friction just helps people move to a better place of discussion rather than it being arbitrarily gatekeeped at a premature spot because people are too occupied with other responsibilities to go do the janitorial work.
Yeah, I mean, I think I made this point many times, right? Like any system that is very systematic will eventually get gamed, right? Like that's just how humans work, right? Like democracy was great until it wasn't. It was a great system when people owned land, and it was very restrictive on who could vote, so that you wouldn't vote somebody else's shit away. But anyways, the point is like, it's good for Bitcoin to keep on moving and keep on evolving, stay on its feet. And I think like changing the process, it's not a bad thing. And because at the end of the day, the process and Bitcoin Core don't matter. I mean, they're a big voice, but at the end of the day, it's your node and you choose to run the code or not. And I think like a lot of the people who want changes to Bitcoin, especially the kids who want the opcodes for scaling Bitcoin and to do cool shit, they forget that like the majority of the economic nodes like probably don't want any changes. They don't want risk to their piles, right? And that was like a huge part of UASF, which was a critical problem to Bitcoin, which is different than this now, right? So I think through attrition, people give up on things, which is a good thing. We can get into the merits of proposals in a different thing, but yeah, it's cool to see.
But the attrition should be in those actual discussions, not a meta discussion of you don't have a BIP number yet, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe I'm channeling Mr. Hodo now. Bitcoin is consensus by drama. Bitcoin is politics. People, coders like devs especially, don't like to sort of acknowledge the fact that they're still humans on this, and it is politics. So it's just a voluntary system, which is much better. But it is drama. Like and it's not going to change. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, I mean, like the bottom of all this is like whether or not the people who are validating their transactions want to run your software or not. Like that's like the bottom of this.
Yep.
And so regardless of what's in which repo, like if you can get the economic majority to run your software, then like that's what they're running, and there's a lot of people proposing different changes to Bitcoin, and if they can't get people to run their software, then it's not going to happen. Like that's the bottom of this whole thing.
I think one of the worst memes that Bitcoin ever had was the run the node thing.
Yeah,
because
Yes.
it gave pretty much every person who was not very tuned in after, I don't know, what's 2017, 2016, this idea that just like running the Bitcoin core node does anything to the network. Like,
well, people think that they're voting. Yeah,
Like it's democracy.
yeah, but it's like if that was true, Bitcoin would be cyberable.
Yeah.
You know, you just run a million nodes on Amazon. Like, nodes don't really mean anything. What means something is economic nodes. It means that you have skin in the game on that specific piece of software that you're running, and you're willing to dump the other fork,
Yep.
and you're willing to relay transactions that are matching your preference based on your pile. It's but I think you'll get through. Like, once we have another sort of upgrading proposal that like gets a little bit more traction, I think people learn through the forks. They can't learn just through just watching the noise that it is Twitter. Yeah, maybe, who knows, maybe Mutiny becomes mainnet.
MutinyNet is the new mainnet. It always has been.
MutinyNet becomes mainnet.
I mean, I only hold MutinyNet sats. It's my favorite blockchain. It's like the only one that I transact on.
I have far more MutinyNet sats than real Bitcoin, so I would happily switch over.
Yeah, Ben is Satoshi.
I'm still a testnet guy, even though my testnet is 0 right now. I had a nice pile of testnet. It was really nice. It felt rich.
Did Jameson Lop reorg all of them?
Because it's like more real than Signet, you know, like
until Jameson rugs you by reorging all of your blocks.
That's right. Anyways, one comment: you can get this episode, all episodes, as a newsletter, and the newsletter is about 50 times longer than the show. Johnny puts a lot of effort in like listing all these things, so you should definitely subscribe to the newsletter. It's free. Everything is free on this. This is just therapy. So, right. I mean, I guess we can get into some of this BIPs maybe later, but there is now a BIP number for CAT, txhash, and other things that have been proposed.
Did Ordinals get a BIP?
No. Another one was Ancestor.
Yeah, that was dumb, right? I mean, just let it be. Just let it have a number.
And for context, Ancestor Package Relay also got BIP 331, and it was originally assigned a number October of 2022, and it just got merged, the official assignment of that number, yesterday.
Jesus.
To talk about like how long of a lag there is, like arbitrarily, that was kind of coming up the process.
Yeah, I saw stuff like from like 2020 being like typo fixes getting merged. Like,
yeah,
it's been a long time coming.
You know, those typos could be a backdoor, eh?
Exactly.
For people that don't know, the BIP repo is different than the Bitcoin Core repo. Okay, it's not the same code base. All right, vulnerability disclosures. We have a packed section here. Juice jacking attack. Demonstration shows a juice jacking attack with using a Flipper Zero device to execute scripts on Android smartphone, installing malware without the user interaction. I can't remember if it was the same one or we just had one or two episodes ago. It was very similar of nature, where you're essentially using HID to essentially inject malware into the stack using the QI charger. What people don't know is QI, so the capacitive charging, the wireless charging, and also USB-C. They are not passive chargers, right? They actually exchange certificates. Hey, do you want power? Show me your creds. No joke. And that's how they negotiate the power, the wattage that you should provide and all that stuff. It's pretty scary. And anyway, so it's another attack here. So, you know, it goes to show, be air gap. Don't connect your devices onto computers.
You know, I feel like there's a meme just waiting to be born there about like KYC charging, right? It's like if you don't have the right certs, then you can't draw wattage.
joke, but it is kind of like that already. Like if you want to have a nice stamp of approval from like USB CPD and all the stuff, like that's why it took a long time for China to start shipping USB-C stuff. It's like that, Bluetooth, all these things. Like it's not that simple to get the full certification if you want that, and some countries require that.
Yeah. You'll have a social credit score. If you drained your battery using Twitter, you won't be able to recharge it.
That's right. Bring back dumb charging. BadUSB vulnerability again. Recent discovery highlights a new BadUSB attack vector using consumer control specification of HID. This attack method bypasses traditional defenses and has been tested in various devices, including ATMs. I haven't looked into the actual details of this one, but I assume it's very similar to the previous. Somebody just figured out how to exploit the USB stack with HID injections.
Does wireless charging have the same vulnerability?
Yeah. I mean, because it's based on the USB spec. Like, when I've been bitching about the USB spec many times, even though people try to minimize USB attacks, it's like, go read the USB stack. It's like millions of lines.
It's insanely complex.
And it's designed by committee, by large entities. It's like, it's an absolute clusterfuck. It's like trying to secure shit in the browser.
Well, and like if you look at USB-C, that's not a single spec. There's like a base spec, and then there's all these extensions on it. So like there's USB, PD.
Mhm.
There's like different there's different bands of PD. There's like different data carrying rates, and each one of those is an additional layer of specification that you have to layer onto the base USB spec. And so you end up with this like cross product of complexity. And there's, spec complexity, and then there's implementation complexity.
And not just that, the implementations are all yeah, no, it's pretty brutal. Like, just imagine this, right? Your hard drive, it's super high speed.
Mm-hmm.
Is sharing the same carrier as like, your USB stick,
Mm-hmm.
as your hardware wallet, as your fucking printer. And we all know how secure printers are.
As your display,
like everything. Like, have you seen those little dongles that have like every possible port on them that goes into your USB-C? Just think of that, like going together with your hardware wallet. Just imagine like how many like possible attack surface there is there. It's pretty brutal. All right. FixedFloat announces another exploit. This one was a fun one. So essentially, like, somebody figured out how to exploit the Apple memory, where they can look at the memory that other programs are using. So you do need root access, but remember your printer drivers, your little snitch. Like, there is a million. If you put a password to install on a Mac, okay, or even on Linux too, that means it probably has root access, right? Essentially, that's what you were doing. You were giving it the permissions to do that. And that means it can see the shared memory. And then when you're doing private key operations, do you know what happens? It can see the private key on the other memory allocation. Yay. So, for example, if you're using, your computer for private keys, that's a problem. If you're using a Raspberry Pi for keys, that's a problem because it's a full computer that shares memory between the services. When you're doing embedded, you're very careful about where the memory is and where, like, you are literally choosing and constructing the pages of memory on embedded devices, right? And you don't do that on a computer. And a computer is the OS that does that. So it's very bad.
classic.
All right. OpenJS Foundation targeted in JavaScript project takeover. So they use the XZ classic, right? We're going to see a lot of these coming. And just imagine the amount of people that didn't say that out loud, that got owned by the XZ. They're still getting owned right now because they're running that version of Debian, right? Brutal. And people blindly load shit in JavaScript into their servers, into their wallets and things. Remember when Ledger had the CDN attacked? The hackers replaced the smart contract shit on the Ledger Live and then just money gone.
Yeah, one of the things that's like really interesting is if people don't do a lot of back-end infrastructure work, like you have a lot of deployment artifacts where you like bake everything into a single artifact and it gets like certified and signed off by your team and like all this stuff. And that ends up being like your base deployment image for like everything. And those things tend to have like a long tail of getting updated. And so I think, what you're going to see is not this like XZ exploit against like end user devices. It'll be like, oh yeah, there's some caching servers somewhere that, they haven't been rehydrated. And like, those are the things that got popped. Like there's going to be a long tail of that stuff for a year.
I mean, like, just imagine all the web shops and all the fucking websites that have people's home addresses and credit card information. Like this is essentially backdoor into the server. Like that's what this is.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, we patched the database, but we forgot to do the analytics stack. It's going to be that kind of thing.
Yes, it is pretty brutal. We still haven't seen the consequences for the next like 5 years. That's why you should use FreeBSD. FreeBSD stuff like this seriously would never have happened. just by the way that the process works. It's like very similar to core in a way. Nothing gets updated. It really is that simple.
Or like OpenBSD, everything is written from scratch by a small number of people, then put into ports.
Yeah, like that's it. And people should strive for that, especially when you're handling money. All right, GitHub comments abused to push malware via Microsoft repo URL.
Amazing.
Great one. By the way, GitHub is not something that should be blindly trusted. Remember when that kid hacked the Ruby on Rails repo?
You're gonna have to be more specific than that.
Way back then, and showed that like you could just like change the commits and stuff.
Okay.
This was the most, I think, famous sort of like shit show that ever happened on GitHub and Rails. So I think it's because he found an exploit and they wouldn't take the commit or something. So he went and he fixed it by hacking GitHub. Something like that. It was somebody's story. Anyways, so yeah, assume, state actors can see all your GitHub shit, even if it's private, and assume somebody can fake your shit.
This exploit looks funny because you would just upload files via comments into GitHub, and then you could delete the comment, but the pointer to the file was still there. So it looked like it came from GitHub. So you're like, oh, I'm just going to click the link. It's in the GitHub repo. And pwned.
Amazing. That's very good.
Yep. I mean, you gotta appreciate a good hack, right? All right. Apple issues notifications to iPhone users in 92 countries about potential spyware attack. Charles from Ledger was talking about Apple's compromise detection mechanism implemented to warn users. So yeah, I think what happened on this one was like the warning system was actually compromised, and that's how they were pounding people.
Is this the iMessage one?
Yeah. By the way, all the links to all the details are on the show notes. All right. Braiins warns users not to update stock firmware to the latest version as Bitmain restricts installation of third-party firmware. I guess if you update it, you probably brick your miner.
Yeah, it restricts future. You basically restrict yourself from doing any future Braiins upgrades if you boot it. Like the new firmware just locks it down.
Yeah, we call that a level watermark. Water level mark? Water level mark.
High watermark.
Is it high watermark or level watermark? I can never remember. High watermark, right?
High watermark because they're saying like you won't go below this version again.
Yes, so high watermark.
Yeah, it's a ratchet.
Yeah, you have to do this oftentimes in hardware because you could be fixing bugs that you don't. For example, we've done this in ColdCARD a few times. So like you could have like a bug that if you back install a firmware version, you could break it. So oftentimes it's the best way really of handling this. You just don't let people go back.
Yeah, and like sometimes in hardware you might like burn a fuse when you do an upgrade like that, so that people like literally cannot go backwards.
Yes. very common in hardware, especially embedded systems that you can't just like go and change the hard drive. All right. El Salvador Hacker Group, CiberInteligenciaSV published Chivo Wallet ATM code. So these guys hacked their ATM network and disclosed a bunch of and like leaked a bunch of shit.
God, I just realized I've been spending too much time on Bitcoin Twitter. I read this headline and I thought it was CiberIntelligencia Satoshi's vision, not Salvador.
Brutal. All right. Employees of telecommunication company T-Mobile targeted by SIM swap scheme received text offers of $300 per SIM swap. Well, Jesus, it's cheap to buy people. Brutal. Like, don't use SMS for two-factor authentication. It is a stupid shitcoin of a two-factor authentication. T-top with Google off works great. Just make sure you don't back up into the cloud, which is, I think, the default now.
It is the default.
Looking at the Merkle branch. Oh, so this one was cool. Okay, let me read it. Looking at the Merkle, the mining pools sent to miners as part of Stratum's job. It's clear that BTC.com pool, Binance pool, Pooling, EMCD, Raw pool, and possibly Braiins have exactly the same template custom transaction prioritization as Ant pool. So this is interesting. Why? So it really has this vibe that Antpool has way more hash rate than claim to have. And they're trying to hide the hash rate by using different pools, but they're still using the same template and the same payment address group, right? So this was found by 0xB10C, I think because he was doing chain analysis on these blocks. And my suspicion is, we know that there's a lot of pool operators out there that don't report the correct hash rate to their pool so that they can steal from the top. This used to happen back then a lot. Because the way that they do the pool shares has nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's just accounting, and accounting gets exploited. That is my view here, is that these guys were trying to do some funny business with the accounting. So they were hiding hash rate. Thoughts?
Yeah, so there's a couple of mechanics here. I was listening to Matt Corallo, was just on TFTC, and some of the mechanics around this too are around FPPS, with how miners get paid. So miners, there's different ways you can do how miners get paid for each unit of work, each share of work. FPPS is what's most friendly to commercial businesses because they basically, no matter what the Bitcoin fees are, they're getting paid a fixed amount. But that effectively sets the mining pool up to be almost like a casino book, because you have to be able to handle variance. If you find a lot of blocks, or if you don't find enough blocks, you're still paying the same fixed amount. So certain pools like Braiins went from PPLNS, which was like they would look over the past N number of shares and distribute it out that way. When a block was found, they weren't taking risk, but they were having traction finding larger miners. But they moved to FPPS, which kind of probably coincides with this Ant pool change as well. And it's a way to all of these other pools, like you said, Ant pools basically distributing out this hash under a bunch of different names. And ultimately, I think it's a big centralization concern and factor, because even if they're under a different mining pool where you're pointing the hash, if the same person, the same core node is organizing all the block templates, it makes that node basically half the network's transaction organization, which really not great. I think this has been a rumor now for the past couple of a year or two. I've heard people chatting about this, but I think there were some sloppy on-chain Coinbase consolidations across the different pools, which kind of like showed like the smoking gun.
Comments, concerns?
A lot of concerns.
It's
Not great, Bob.
Not great. But like the natural state of the mining incentive is to try to cheat it, right? Like that is by design, that is the natural incentive, right? Like, so it's like, it's not surprising that people are trying to do this. I think that's an important sort of like reflection to note, that like we expect these things to happen. and we also expect to catch them and then shame them into better behavior. Because we don't really care which miner. If you're not a miner, like which miner is making more money and all that stuff. But the what we care is mining centralization, and even the other miners care about this. So if it is found, I think the price of Bitcoin would reflect some of this risk, and that should correct some of the bad mining behavior. That's why we don't like, for example, MEV, because it sort of goes towards that direction.
I'm surprised we haven't seen like a huge like divest of like miners switching pools, because like the last time this happened with like ghash.io, like
Yes,
that basically killed ghash.io of them being too big, and now no one's really switching around as far as I can tell. So
I think they're still recuperating from poverty over the bear market. Like miners got really hurt on this last one, and I think people are just pragmatically trying to recoup cost. This I don't know. I am not as worried. I feel like these things are great to be found, great to be talked about, but it's not really sort of like existential risk as they tend to correct themselves.
Also, I don't remember the numbers, but like I saw the list of mining pools that shared the same block template, and they were all like relatively small. Like the way that some people were talking about this, you would think that it's like 60% of the hash rate, and it's not. It's more hash rate than we thought Ampool had, but it's not a huge amount.
the thing we were talking about at BitDev delays, it said it comes out to like 47% hash rate.
Is it that high? Okay.
Yeah, something like really high.
Yeah, that's pretty high.
Yeah. Well.
All right, never mind then.
Yeah.
Yeah, like because I'm looking at mempool space right now. Like Ampool has 21 like advertised, and then F2 pool is under them, and that's 12%. So that ends up you're already at like 33.
But like F2 pool wasn't on this list, right? So it's like it's Amp pool, and then you've got
I thought it was
BTC.com, which is let's see, that's like 2%.
Okay.
And then you've got Binance pool, which is actually pretty big. That's like 4.5%. You've got Poolin, which I don't even see on the list.
Okay, yeah.
EMCD, which doesn't show up on the list.
So F2 pool got pulled in because our favorite mempool monkey, Mononaut, found the transaction that was consolidating all of these different pools in the same transaction.
Yep.
So F2 pool's Coinbase transaction is in an input for this big consolidation.
Got it. All right. That's the thing that I missed then.
And F2 pool is like 17%. Like
I read it as like Amp pool plus this long tail of sub 1% pools, which is like whatever. But if F2 pool is in there, then that's quite a bit bigger.
Yeah.
So maybe it's F2 pool is getting their own templates, but they're using the same custodian.
That's possible too. I have personally DM'd Chung to get a transaction included before, so I know F2 pool runs their own.
Yeah, they definitely have their own stuff, because you can just send Sean a transaction over Telegram and he'll include it for you.
That's like the thing that people sort of forget, is that like most miners are running their own custom core, their own custom mempools. And that's a healthy thing, by the way. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's good that they're like running their own shit, because whenever they do something slightly off, like they break, and it shows like the resiliency of the consensus.
Right.
Shout out Libra Relay.
Yeah, the dark topic of the day: Samourai wallet founders Keon and Will were charged with money laundering, and a few other charges too. I haven't read the full the full indictment, or not. It's not an indictment. The full charges. This is kind of chilling because there is a lot of overreaching, and they're essentially the feds are going back to 2015. I don't know what the statute of limitation is on this stuff, but I imagine for financial crimes is like to the day you were born. And they quote tweets of messaging that are considered marketing when it comes to this kinds of charges. It's a rough one, man. Like, as I think most people listening to this pod, it's like there's a good part of the community that does not jive well with the Samourai guys. They were a difficult group, to say the least, to deal with through the years. But at the same time, I mean, like, fuck, like, this is not, we don't want anybody going to jail over privacy solutions. It's pretty wrong. I've said many times that, like, if you're running a centralized anonymization solution and you're taking profit directly from those things, it's like you're really asking for it. It's there is laws that are very, very specifically constructed to deal with that, and they've been built for over, I don't know, like, when was Al Capone dealt with? It's been what, like 100 years now,
Yeah.
almost. These guys have massaged these laws to really catch every tiny little part around this. Oftentimes they catch people on the tax, like Al Capone, not on the crime. And it's a tough one, man. Don't want these guys to go to jail. I hope that maybe COPPA or somebody with big pockets for legal defenses come to the rescue and helps, because this is going to set a lot of bad precedents. But at the same time, it's like, coin mixing should be, open, decentralized protocols, right? Like, it's very similar to how torrent played out, right? I mean, like, you have Napster, you have all those centralized not torrenting. I mean, some of them were not torrent, but you had these very sort of centralized systems for you to share music files and things, and then they beef up the law and they go after them, and then eventually you get unbreakable. Like, I mean, torrent's still around and works great, right? It's just fully decentralized, especially with magnets. And yeah, I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I haven't read the full indictment, and I'm not a lawyer, but I read the press release from the DOJ, and something that stood out to me just reading the press release is, a lot of the text in the PR is talking about how they advertised their service for a particular kind of user and how they took fees for it. And you were just talking about copyright enforcement. The thing that it made me think about is the DMCA, right, which is a law that was passed in like 2000 for online copyright enforcement, had this carve out around safe harbor. And it's like, if you make a website and you advertise it as like, hey, you can come and pirate stuff here, and you specifically like advertise that and you take a fee, then you're now liable for like everything on your website. If you don't do that, if you say like, oh yeah, this is a generic like Wikipedia thing, and then people happen to upload copyrighted content, then you can claim safe harbor and say, yeah, I'll make reasonable efforts to like take down stuff if it's reported to me, but that's not really what this is for. And I'm a lot of people are speculating on like what is the precedent that's going to be set by this case, and I hope it's not anything that touches Bitcoin and collects money is like now a money service business or something. But like as I read through the things that they're focusing on in the press release, I think that there's like some parallels to kind of like the DMCA like copyright fights that people had 20 years ago. I'm not a lawyer. I have no idea. We're gonna have to see like what actually gets argued in court. But I think a lot of people are jumping to a lot of conclusions about like what this could mean. And I think it's telling to look at what the state is focusing on to make their case.
They're trying to send a message, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they want to make sure that anybody running anything that is custodial, semi-custodial, whatever, they want them to be registered money services businesses so that they can, have full control over them, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I have a feeling that, like, the way they'll go after this, they're going to drop a lot of stuff. Like, normally these cases normally these things go to court and like a lot of charges get dropped. They try to the PR is always like, look, we're charging you for all these things, right? And that's what people remember.
Right. And then what actually goes to court is a tenth of it. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So the issue here really is, and I think this is what they're going to go after, is called proceeds from crime. And what they're going to try to show is like, look, and they probably had, some cops go there and like make a transaction with it that was for an illegal thing. And then they show on chain that like, look, they get a fee from that, right? Like, and that's how they catch a lot of people who are who touch or sort of like are around concerns that the state doesn't like, right?
Yeah.
And that's like super unfortunate, and I don't know, like, because the tech never matters that much in court, right? Like, is how the shit gets argued, how it gets interpreted.
Yep.
Both sides bring their own experts, and
Right.
the experts don't agree at all. Like, just look at hardware wallets, like trying to agree on like what's the correct security, right? Like, imagine in court where everybody has like a complete do or die kind of like different incentive, and they don't care, they'll like literally lie with experts in court, right? So it's a tricky one.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of I'm reading through the indictment, reading through the press release. A lot of this is triangulating on that like they were running a money services business, which typically you associate with an exchange, right? You're going to give me money. I'm holding my money for you. You want to pay someone. I'm going to take my pile of money and pay someone else, right? And for their business, like, I think ultimately, I think the facts of the case are like what they were talking about publicly. Like, it kind of comes in this whole big ensemble, but for the industry, I think it's an important moment in just understanding how the justice system and legal system is going to view this technology, right? Like, independent of maybe what they were specifically doing with explicit privacy. And reading through the indictment, it was specifically they were actively goading the evading of sanctions, saying like, welcome Russian oligarchs, right? So like you can say that's very incriminating. Also, the technology itself, though, my concern would be if a bad ruling were to come down, this is constantly the point reference to as to why any self-custody Bitcoin wallet is facilitating a money laundering.
Yeah, but so here's the problem, right? The press, all this stuff can say one thing, but now they have the servers.
Yeah.
Right. And they have all their computers and everything. So now they can go dumpster diving and reconstruct whatever fucking charge they want from the stuff, right? That's the brutal part.
Yeah.
And remember that the default, I've been screaming for fucking years about this. The default setup on Samourai doxes the xpubs. Right. So now they have this like gigantic database. I mean, I am assuming they do. Who knows? Maybe they have a system that deleted before, but one can assume that backups are very persistent and it's a hard thing to delete data. Now they have like like most of the people who use Samourai, they have like most of their xpubs and they can see their transactions, all their transactions that are related to those keys. It's absolutely brutal.
The other thing, I don't think anybody's talked about this yet. So, everybody in Bitcoin should definitely go and watch the Operation Orchestra video.
Yes. Every episode we bring this up again.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep doing it. But,
Yes.
like a term that everybody should be familiar with is parallel construction. So parallel construction is like, let's say that, the NSA or somebody has like a way to backdoor your machine through like a 0-day, or they have like a break in cryptography or something, and they don't want to reveal to the world that they have that capability because then it'll get patched. What they do instead is like they use it, they find out what they want, and then they go and they find a clue on the street that leads them to the same conclusion, and they like point back to that.
Yeah, it's like a Silk Road. Oh yeah, it was definitely a bug on the CAPTCHA, definitely.
Yeah, right. And so it'll be really interesting to see. I didn't think about it, but a big bag of Samourai X pubs is like perfect fuel for parallel construction in the future.
Yeah.
Like there could be in the future,
yes,
you get pwned through some other mechanism, and then they'll be able to point back and say like, oh yeah, well we had their X pub from the Samourai Wallet case, and led us to this conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, like, you never know. Maybe they're going after these guys because of something else, right? They're trying to reconstruct some other wallet of some bigger fish. Because, realistically speaking, I mean, the Samourai, like, $2 billion is kind of nothing.
Yeah.
When it comes to money laundering, like FinCEN fish they want to fry, right? it's not like it's literally immaterial for like when they go after people.
HSBC does $2 billion a day.
Yeah, I was gonna say HSBC doesn't get out of bed for less than 3. Like,
Yeah.
That's right. And remember I think was it HSBC that owned a boat, like they had like, I don't know, like $1.5 billion.
well, and weren't they also the bank that like installed the teller windows that were the
Yes.
right dimension for a suitcase of cash?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So like, this has like, these things have never anything to do with fairness, right? Like that's why people lose their faith in the in the justice system, right? It's very selective enforcement. The true bad guys never go to jail, right?
I think one of the most concerning things is like they highlighted that like Ricochet was really bad is in their thing, which is like, if you don't know, like Ricochet was basically just like, you'd sign a bunch of transactions with different lock times and they'd broadcast them for you. So it's like literally a transaction broadcasting service.
It's you send the transaction to yourself like 5 times, because a lot of like chain analysis heuristics are like, or a lot of exchange integrations with chain analysis are like, if there was a coin join within 6 transactions of this deposit, then we're gonna reject the funds. And so Ricochet is like, send the money to yourself 5 times, right? That way it's beyond that event horizon. I think the thing that they're pointing to is like, oh well, they collected a fee for this, so they were doing it as a service.
Right.
Yeah. But like functionally, the service was just broadcasting transactions.
It's they're gonna see what they want to see, right? I mean, they're really gonna see what they want to see. Like, we can get caught up on the fucking tack of it, but like, they don't give a shit, right? Like, if they can convince a jury, they can convince a jury.
That gets to Ben's point, though, right? Is broadcasting a transaction like a problem? I guess like you could say it's because they collected a fee for it, but at the same time, it's just...
Yes, that's the problem. Yes.
Well, so I think that, and then the other thing, like again, I'm playing armchair legal scholar here, so like, what the fuck do I know? But everybody is.
Everybody is a legal expert now.
Yeah, for sure. But it's like, I think a lot of people have been saying, well, all these backend services were non-custodial, so how could they be money service businesses? A thing that also I thought was interesting in the press release is that they mentioned several times that that they wrote the wallet software and the backend. And so it'll be interesting to see if they try to make an argument that if you wrote the client and the server, then even though the server is like non-custodial, it's still your code that's moving all of the money, right? Like,
you control it.
Yeah, like your code on the client generated the transaction and then the server broadcasts the transaction, but it's still your code that's doing all of it.
I have a feeling they're going to use a very similar test to the Huey test. Like, it's like, like if you have a certain level of control over a certain thing, right? Like, that's how they do incorporation and everything. It's like, ultimately, who has the control and who's benefiting from the thing?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and judges, like, oftentimes, like, sort of like have, like, they're going to go like, well, if it quacks like a duck is a duck, right? Kind of, it's a tricky one, man. Like, the precedents will be terrible on a case like this if they lose. But like, not all. I'm still very optimistic because I think these guys were on borrowed time. I wish the, like, it wasn't like, through the legal system and charges that, like, these things change. But like, I always kind of joked and like, they're either feds or stupid. Like, like at one point, like, it's brutal, right? Because like, the state doesn't want this to exist. It's the same reason why you can't have a fucking, like, unencrypted quality wireless comms, right? Like, they're not gonna let you have a fully open phone, right? It's the same. Like, it's not my preference. I'm just being sort of realistic, right? Like, the state doesn't want you to have certain things, right? And they're gonna make your life very fucking difficult, and they're gonna make an example of every friend you have who's trying to do such thing. So, I think it's important to keep those realities in mind and not be a fucking martyr, right? Like, go and build decentralized things to begin with. And that's, I don't want to see people going to jail. Like, that's why it gets me fucking angry. It's like, you want people there's very few people who already are willing to be that strong-minded to build the fucking thing and care about the fucking issue, right? And then even less people who can actually write the code for it and have those properties, right? So like, don't be a fucking martyr, right? Like, go build, be smarter, play their game, right? And build something that is resilient and doesn't put you in jail. It's like, pay your fucking taxes, right? Don't be an idiot. Sorry.
I wonder, so a lot of the things that they're charging them with is on, like, taking a fee and blah, blah, blah. And I wonder if we're going to go into, like, like what the e-girls have done of, like, oh, I don't take a fee, it's a donation and stuff like that.
Oh my God.
Yes. But like, dude, like that stuff always gets a pass when it's like, it's an individual.
Yeah.
It's not a system, right? Like, like there is a reason why OnlyFans and all these websites, for example, don't have discoverability.
Yeah.
Right? Because they don't want the shit that is fully illegal to rise to the top, right? They want to be absolved of not having any part in condoning anything. It's just that nobody reported that bad content.
That's right.
Right? It's like, if you're gonna do shit against the state actors, like, have good lawyers.
Yeah.
Like, have them review your shit, because like, these guys don't fuck around. Like, they don't care how, like, it's the opposite actually, right?
Well, and to like the OnlyFans thing, right? It's like so much of this comes down to like plausible deniability. It's like, oh, well, nobody told us that this content was here, and if you did tell us, then we took, commercially reasonable steps to remove it, right? And
yes,
so much stuff gets a pass if your lawyers show up and say, well, every time, here's our policy. Our policy is, if you tell us about it, we'll remove it in 90 days. And here's like our internal controls that help us do that. And like, it sucks that people have to play those games, but like, those are the games that people have to play.
Specifically in the indictment, it cites the fact that Samourai did not have a terms and conditions.
Interesting.
Yeah. And specifically, I think it was T-Dad's like Twitter handle for a while was no KYC, no TNC, no banana. Right. And they're like saying that they flagrantly were just not even having a terms of use, where you would have language like, if we are notified that something is part of a crime, we could just not include it going forward. And that's kind of to your point, like having some baseline operational structure and not being totally flippant to it. Because if you're totally flippant to it, this is the outcome if you're running a service in a company.
No, I mean, definitely don't like, like make a Wyoming company. And like, you look at the Pirate Bay's guys, right? Like, they were in jurisdictions where like it was very hard to see what they were doing to ever be a crime there, right? So it doesn't matter how much the US didn't like and how much they could close their servers and do whatever the fuck they want, right? Like, they were not going to jail, right? So they lived that life, right? It's hard because like, you don't want to sort of like blame the victim here, right? Like, these guys are clearly victim of the legal system and everything, like, absolutely. But like, I think it's like, we can still sort of discuss some of the stupidity in the implementation, right? Like, I think it's good for the other people who are thinking about doing things. And these guys were not easy either. I mean, like, one of them still has Nopara's mother's address as their like Twitter bio. Like, like, it's brutal. It's a tough one. Fuck the government and this like completely unfair laws, but they are the laws.
Yeah, it sucks. It's really shitty.
Yeah, you should be able to transact privately in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin as a network doesn't work if you can't have some level of privacy in transacting. Like the network just doesn't operate at all.
Oh, absolutely. Like, like it's like this doesn't minimize the need that we have for privacy. And I, and to be realistic, I mean, like, there is joint markets. People should be using joint markets. Joint markets is decentralized, right? Like, it's a much better thing.
Yeah.
There is nobody taking like centralized profit from joint markets, right?
Right. Well, and what's interesting is like in the joint market model, the actors who take the fee are market makers. So in joint market, there's makers and takers. And so if you have some Bitcoin that you want to park and you want to like earn a little bit of a yield from it, you put your Bitcoin up as a market maker in join market. And the idea is that then if somebody wants to do a coin join, they come along and they're the taker, and the taker coordinates the transaction and says, all right, you 6 market makers, I want to use your liquidity in this transaction, and it pays them a fee, and that taker, coordinates the coin join. And so there's, there's not a centralized coordinator. There's there's kind of like an order book or an order pit on it's on like IRC, and it's just like a bunch of software bots that are coordinating with each other. And it's a much more resilient model.
It's a symmetric risk, right? So like essentially like your risk there is just the counterparty that is doing the coin joining for you in terms of like legal risk, right? You're not like, it's not like, you have a centralized party now with asymmetric risk where they're essentially at risk for every single transaction in the system, right? It's a one-to-one kind of risk thing, legally speaking, I guess. I don't know.
And it's much more diffuse. Like the risk is spread kind of across all the participants instead of having one locus.
Yes, but like all the better systems, they don't have good UI and good UX. So that's the challenge with joint markets. And also, like, one part I never liked is that like you shouldn't be like doing the shit from a phone, because phones are owned too. Like, I don't know. There is a lot of issues with this whole thing. Maybe it's too soon to talk about implementation concerns and things, because this guy's just got picked up and it's fucking unfair. Anyways, brutal.
Yeah, I hope they're able to get good representation.
Yes, and get the fuck out and go back to abusing us on Twitter. That's the best outcome, is that they're back abusing everybody on Twitter. Now, Bitcoin consensus changes that would never happen. This is my new section on the Bitcoin.review podcast. And I have one of the foremost specialists on things that will never happen on Bitcoin here. Rijndael wanted to mention this children's book just got released about CATVM. So please, Rijndael.
Yeah. So a lot of people are making white papers in 2024 for things that like don't exist or will never exist. And a lot of the white papers are just like thinly veiled marketing documents that don't have any detail or basis in reality. We've been working on something where like we're really big fans of OpCat, and we are exploring different things that you can do with OpCat. Salvatore from Ledger, he came out with a really clever construction like a year ago, maybe a bit more than a year ago, called MAT, Merkleize All the Things, where you can put a UTXO into a state where it can be optimistically spent based on the result of some off-chain computation. BitVM is kind of that idea, but using pre-signed transactions instead of covenants. The original MAT construction needed OpCat, but it also needed some other covenants to do a bunch of other introspection and to carry state. So there's a covenant called check contract verify that some people put together. We discovered that you can actually do a MAT kind of construction using just OpCat. It's all you need is just OpCat and existing Bitcoin opcodes. So we've been experimenting with that idea and kind of designing some stuff with it. And instead of writing a white paper that nobody would read or nobody would understand, we wrote a illustrated children's book called CATVM, There and Back Again. And it follows a protagonist named Young Rijndael, no relation, who is tasked by the spirit of Satoshi to help build a bridge to get the inhabitants of the Isle of On-Chain off-chain, where they're going to find riches and adventure. And he goes and looks at multi-sig and pre-signed transaction constructions and finds that they're all just like terrible. And so he ends up getting lost in a merkle tree forest, where a cat spirit finds him and leads him to a library where he reads books by Archmage Polstra and Salvatore, and realizes that he can use the power of the cat to build a permissionless bridge to get people to the riches of off-chain. And he does it, and Satoshi and the quantum cat fade off into the sunset. So it's a children's book, but it has some like serious content, and it has actual technical details in the book. So check it out, read it. Feel free to let us know on Twitter what you think about it. I read it to my 5-year-old and he loved it. I had to do like different voices for the Spirit of Satoshi and it was great.
I'll get my wife to read to my kids.
Are you guys going to release a real white paper? I tried reading the children's books. I was like, this is too much, and gave up.
I don't know, because like we've been getting feedback from a lot of people that they're like, this is the first like white paper like thing that I actually read and had some understanding of like what's supposed to be happening here. People really like it. So I kind of hope that the industry leans into this and like, LaTeX white papers are seen as high time preference chicanery and people actually put in the proof of work to do illustrated children's books.
It's all over.
Yeah, I think like, I'd love if you guys were doing like some of the stuff you guys done for CAT, and I remember the BIP path one, the quantum CAT thing. You guys should do some of the stuff for the existing things that are on Bitcoin that people cannot comprehend.
That's an idea.
Like seriously, like there is some serious talent there, and I think it'll be hugely beneficial even to the things you guys want to activate. If you can get people to understand the previous things, like just understanding the basics. Remember when we were trying to explain like cryptography through farmers terms?
Yeah.
Maybe some of the stuff like the storytelling that you guys do that is absolutely amazing for existing things would be really cool.
Ben, I will say that there are going to be more concrete technical details coming later, but to introduce the idea, we wanted to get people just like excited about it and understanding the benefit before we get into like nitty gritty.
No, that's fair.
Rijndael, is there any sort of work being done by some of the DGen friends there on doing some of these things without any changes to Bitcoin, or is just pretty hopeless?
Yeah,
because we really don't have any of those primitives.
Yeah, people are trying on different constructions. Like a lot of them end up kind of reducing down to a big multisig.
Right. It's always a shitty multisig that doesn't work.
Or people are trying other constructions that then might have like liquidity or capitalization constraints where it's like, oh, if it gets really big, then it becomes financially ruinous to try to operate at scale. So
that's the BitVM problem.
It's tough. The thing I'm excited about is that I think a lot of people are trying to take a step back and say, what's the capability that we're trying to build, and then trying to kind of figure out how to make it work with Bitcoin.
Right. Work backwards. Demand-based engineering. Go figure.
Yeah, right. Instead of saying, hey, here's the bag of parts. How do we make a product out of this that people will want? A lot of the DGen use case is saying, all right, there's demand for a thing. Now, how do we deliver that thing using Bitcoin?
Is there anybody working on essentially like, say an eCash based solution for all these things that people want to do that then is all sort of like ruled by up return type things, and because you can still stick it on chain.
So there's some people who are looking at using state chains for some of this stuff, which you can do, like Mercury layer type constructions.
State chains are cool.
There's people who are looking at eCash like things, because the thing that you need to make a lot of these meta protocols work is you need like really, really good coin control. And if you do either eCash or like a state chain, you can say, I'm passing around a claim on a specific UTXO, which is what you need to make this stuff work.
Yes.
And so people are definitely exploring it. I think the trick is building things that have like the right UX in terms of wallet interop and price structure and like compatibility with the kinds of systems. So like I don't have any affiliation with this group, but like an interesting company in this space is called Liquidium. And what they're doing is they're doing like a borrow lend market against ordinals, and it's using DLCs, which is like a cool way of taking kind of the more advanced Bitcoin scripting stuff. And
Ben's.
What's that?
You said DLCs.
Look at that. He just moves on his. He hears DLC. He has to adjust his pants.
So like again, like they're like actually making money like using this stuff, right? Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, It's funny, right? Because it goes back to like financial use of Bitcoin.
Yep.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like I really hope that we start seeing more eCash things Cashew and Pediment using base layer as opposed to Lightning, because that removes a lot of complication, and then you can focus more on building the interesting things.
I had this observation when like layer 2 season was starting and everyone's like launching a new product that like a Fediment is a really, or like a eCash system is a really reasonable way to do that. Because if you're already kind of, it's a custodial-esque arrangement, whether it's multi-sig with a federation or if it's a single person. Once you're in that arbitrary, like that one person, you can run any off-book accounting or contractual scheme that you want and then settle that back to on-chain when you're done.
Another interesting one that's like actually seen some usage in the market is, the way that people buy and sell, whether it's runes or ordinals, is through these like PSBT swaps using a combination of like txhash flags. You can use that to build a Dutch auction, but there's a marketplace that's actually built an English auction where you can do ascending price. And the way that they do that is you put your asset into what's basically a 2 of 2 multi-sig that has a time-locked refund path. Because like in order to do an ascending price auction, you have to make sure that somebody who's made a bid can't then go and spend the UTXO in order to basically get like a free option on the bid. And so you put your asset into a 2 of 2 with the marketplace. And for a week, the marketplace has to co-sign any transaction. So once you've made a bid, they're not going to let you co-sign a transaction to like get your money out until after the auction is over. But then if the marketplace goes away, then you have like a time locked refund path.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, you can start seeing like, oh yeah, we can take, Miniscript or just like other interesting multi-sig constructions and start building like more interesting financial applications because now we have a thing to actually buy and sell on chain.
That was always one of the most interesting things when the inscription stuff took off, independent of your opinion of them, is that they were using things like txhash single, something that's been around in Bitcoin forever and just no one had really had a use case for before. So
Yeah.
I think that was like a really interesting opening up of a design space to understand what can we do more here with Bitcoin as programmable money. Miniscript also too. Like my glib joke is always, if you're going to do a multi-sig for these federations, do something that's better than just two.
Do it with Miniscript.
Well, yeah, just do it. Like why only stick with 2 or 3 like we're in 2016 or 3 or 5? If you're doing some big complicated thing like already, like just having more resiliency and making sure that you're not going to have all of these things that happened in ETH where like, oh, the multi-sig got hacked, we lost $100 million. Like you could do better ways of doing it because I have a feeling that's all coming.
Controversial take here. I think P2SH and all the multi-sig stuff is like it's on borrowed time. Terrible tech.
Is this an MPC shill?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time before we move on from it. It's just that cryptography on MPC is a lot more complicated. It's actually not more complicated. It's just more new. So we have you guys seen Jimmy's proposal, the Arctic stuff, to essentially bypass, but not bypass, like leapfrog Frost? He has a whole protocol thingy so that you don't have to. So you have better nonce management because that's the concern, right? It's kind of very interesting, and I think he's about to write a Python implementation of it. Another cool thing about the MPC stuff is that it also bypasses Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin, right? So you don't need changes to Bitcoin. You don't need to deal with any of this shit. It's just like, you're just doing cryptography outside of Bitcoin, and ideally using libsec, right? Which is the most important part. Right. So you're using the Bitcoin curve, the Bitcoin implementation of the curve that is very secure and safe, and it is properly thought through to do other things, right? So for example, Cashew uses libsec as well, right? Like it's very clever. So is Nostr.
Mm-hmm.
What prevented us from doing cool shit with MPC things before was the lack of a trusted cryptography library and the right cryptography people being around. I think now we have all those ingredients because of Bitcoin, and we can sort of like leapfrog all this shit that doesn't really work well. Because, can you imagine having like a lot of inputs on a multi-sig P2SH and trying to like pass that through a high fee environment, which is the future? Like it's hopeless, right? So, I I think the stars are starting to align into a better path. It's still going to take like 5 years to get somewhere.
Well, it's not even just the future. I mean, like with the halving for a day there because of Runes Mania, it was $300 to do a one input one output transaction on chain.
Yeah, but that's always kind of like that, right? I mean, like the halving is always like everybody wants to get their fucking like there. It's always been sort of weird, but yeah, I agree with you. It's the path is that.
I want to call back out to Bitcoin Review episode 45, MPC Bros versus Team Script, because Rijndael and I are on the show. We've formally buried our hatchet. This should have been honestly the opening news item of the show, but we've decided to come together for Team Taproot.
Yeah, sorry guys. We need to do an episode just on that.
Yeah, I don't know how we missed it.
Yeah. But just to say, I agree. I think MPC, especially when you combine it with TapScript paths, you could have different sign-off thresholds that are all just mu6 under the hood, right, during different script paths. So it all just looks like a single sig, and you're just going to different branches of the Merkle tree. I think once getting that nonce management really dialed in really allows it to, everything could be a multi-sig and you have no idea what's going on. And that's just better for everyone.
And from the caveman side of the equation, right? Like, the hardware already supports the right curve.
Right.
We have like 15 years of like protecting and sort of like thinking through how to sign this stuff with the Bitcoin curve, right? So like it really sort of like, it's like all the parts are there. If people would only stop messing with JPEGs and focus on creating MPC for inheritance, I think that's the next big company. It's going to be a sort of more, I would say like decentralized, but like a more uncapturable protocol solution using MPC with the Bitcoin curve for inheritance, for proper Bitcoin storage, in the near future.
Do you think that's possible without the hardware wallets really picking up? I'm thinking besides like the Froster, not Froster, that's the Nostra version, but the FrostSnap.
No, that part, ignore that part. That part is easy. See,
okay.
If there is somebody building a wallet that's very good at doing that stuff, the hardware wallets would just start providing that. But you don't need the hardware wallets to do it because you can use local signers, right?
Okay.
Think about like how it works, right? You can have all those keys inside the wallet. So you can start showing us, the wallet manufacturers, they're like, look, like just do this and you can be a signer here, right? Like, and then we would just, like cavemen go fire good, because that's the hardware industry, and then we go and we build it for you.
Totally.
Right?
Got it. I want to point out that this is the attack that Rijndael was able to execute on the podcast, attacking Bitcoin, because we're like an hour and a half in. We haven't even gone to the software releases yet.
You're welcome.
It's been like that the last few episodes now. We've expanded the editorial part of the podcast on the very beginning,
because this show is now Bitcoin.therapy, right? And at the end is.
Yes, it is. They don't have that URL.
No, you should. You should try and grab that. There was 20 security vulnerabilities too to talk about. It was a beefy one this week.
Yes. But by the way, it is Socratic. It's just the members here have decided to stay on these topics. So like it is, it's not like it's a dictatorship or anything.
I'm part of the problem.
Yes. Talking about that, Bitcoin Core version 27, lib consensus deprecated library that removed for v28, mempool.dat compatibility, P2P network changes, mempool policy changes, opt-in topologically restricted until confirmation through C, external signing support for signing on Windows, updated RPC. I'm just gonna run through it and we can pick at it.
Yeah, like the V2 transport by default is probably the biggest thing in this release.
Yes, it's a huge one. It's a great improvement in privacy and censorship concerns.
The coin grinder coin selection is pretty nice too. Where like Bitcoin Core by default like optimize for like longevity of your UTXOs, but people would complain of like, oh, fees just jumped to 1,000 sats per VByte because of these runes people. My wallet's trying to like last for the long term. But it's like, this is a temporary thing. I just want to spend the least amount of sats right now. So when fees spike, it uses a different algorithm, just like use the least fees possible. So that's kind of nice.
I mean, realistically speaking, very few people use Bitcoin Core as their wallet.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, question. I don't know. I can't. Well, not a lot of people still use Spectre anymore. But would Spectre do use the fee estimation from Core or their own? I think from Core, right?
I'm assuming Core because it didn't have like a mempool connection, because that's the only other reasonable fee
That's right.
estimation. So it would talk to your core node.
Yeah. So yeah, it's Bitcoin Core. The wallet part is always tricky. Not a lot of people use it. And also, like, big players that do use it, we wouldn't know. So
Yeah.
any other parts here that you guys feel like commenting on?
No, V2 was the big one.
Support for external signing on Windows. They should actually just remove support for Windows. That would be kind of hilarious.
Yeah. Go full circle. Just remove Satoshi's Windows build.
Build yourself if you want Windows. I mean, can you imagine, like, Satoshi could totally dox himself if he was using like a more obscure system at the time, like maybe some OpenBSD or something like that. It would be not ideal. So probably why he chose to do Windows. Like, no self-respecting technical person uses Windows. So like, it's like full anonymity. Sparrow Wallet version 1.8.6, improvements to search wallet dialog, allow labels editing, a bunch of things here. Add show all wallets summary to show the balance of open wallets. Add the mix selected button to the UTXO tab pulse mix. Account desktop. Add wallet import for Samourai backup export file.
Those buttons probably don't work right now.
Yeah. Craig Raw just announced on Nostr that 1.9 will remove all the Samourai stuff. So
yeah. Okay, so he said it publicly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I totally get it. Like, it goes to, like, sort out the tools so the tools don't get people in jail. Like, I really think that that's the best approach. Like, there is, there's no point in being a martyr. Sparrow is like probably one of the biggest install base desktop wallets these days. It's a really good wallet. I'm waiting on my feature request, which is the import GUI for wallet files and import Electrum labels from Electrum history to convert them to BIP 329. But look, the state actor sends the chilling effect that he wanted to, right? Like, it's like it sends this message saying, "Don't fucking do this, or we'll put you in jail." And most reasonable people will comply because people have a life to live. Fuck, this is a horrible situation.
Speaking of wallet labels, it seems like more software is supporting 329, like that standard for interoperable wallet labels. I just saw there's a new software called Labelbase. I haven't used it yet. I have no idea. Like, I don't know any of the details.
Yes, it's Javier. It's very cool.
Yeah, I haven't used it, so I don't know.
And he's working on making it private too, so that encrypts locally and then, yeah.
Cool. That's one of those things that people don't think about for wallet interop, but ends up being actually important if you have like real money in a wallet. Like, you don't want to lose all of that history. So I'm really happy that stuff's happening.
100%.
Accounting is very important.
Yeah.
No, it's great.
And we need the metadata.
One Sparrow, there was a stealth note in the release, but after I was on last time with Craig, I made a comment. It'd be really nice to be able to auto boot Sparrow into Signet mode without having to go to the command line if I'm hopping between networks. And he added it in 1.85, but then it was bricking where it would automatically crash on Signet, and that's been patched in 1.86. So very quickly, quicks and fix. And now what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to repoint it to MutinyNet, because I want hundreds of coins to feel like a rich person while I'm doing all my wallet testing. And luckily, I moved over to Signet testing just as Jameson Lopp decided to start attacking testnet, as he called it, tickling the testnet network. So I need to have a big bag of coins, Ben. So I may be coming to you for my MutinyNet bags.
Let me know. I'm happy to help.
By the way, testnet is TBTC. And I've learned that Tether also uses TBTC. Not cool. TBTC being testnet precedes. That's right. Not one USD treasury.
1 TBTC equals 1 TBTC.
I mean, you got a dev, right? So.
Well, testnet started getting a market. People started buying. I think that people were buying for over $1 a testnet coin.
Wow.
Just outright, just silliness.
Well, you know why, right?
Because people were doing degen airdrops on testnet.
Yeah, because like people were building crazy fake dexes on testnet that if you participated in, then you got points that you could then go and like sell. So people are like aping into testnet coins to try to, build up like yield farming points that they can then go and dump.
Man, I wish I still had my big piles.
I had a spike of non-dev friends that were like, hey, do you have any testnet coins? I'm like, what are you using testnet for? Very quickly came to be.
I had some awesome piles of testnet at some point. I'm talking about state actor level of like amounts of coin. And through the years, it's like, who wants coins, right? Like, so please, like the shit is just sitting here. Testnet coins, bad guys, like these are worth nothing, and I don't have them anymore. So anyways, that's kind of hilarious. All right. 1.8.5 implement restart indifferent home folder to tools menu, indicate disconnect startup, add new wallet, open wallet, and import wallet hyperlinks to background shows no tabs open, add a button to display seed QR.
It has the Electrum history CSV for you.
Oh shit, I completely missed it. He didn't even tell me.
Mission accomplished.
Holy fuck. Okay. I'm gonna take a look at that. Oh, I wanted to take a little tangent here to bitch about QRs. So, bare binary QRs are idiotic. Don't do it. It's a terrible standard. It's bad for QR readers. It's completely off spec. It's a complete disrespect to this QR brilliancy and should be banished and exiled. So I think a lot of devs are starting to realize how stupid compact seed QRs are, and seed QRs are completely fine. Like, totally fair standard, very nice. It does the job. Not shitting on that. I'm shitting on compact seed QRs. Clearly a bad idea. It doesn't really add much savings either, because the headings don't really cost anything. And if you just lower the error correction by like a minute amount, you get the same grid for your fully robbable QRs at home solutions. So anyway, so people that are starting to touch hardware more, like for example, Seedhammer, right? They are working on having non-compact seed QRs as part of the solution. And I think we're going to move in that direction. Boy, I never understood how much bad shit there is in the QR Bitcoin universe until I had a Bitcoin QR product.
I still think seed QRs are a terrible idea, but yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it, at least, have it be more compatible so that more devices can steal your money by looking at it.
Exactly. Like, I mean, and the proponents of this also tell people to use the same device, the same Raspberry Pi seed signer for all the keys on your multi-sig. So, anyways, like, whatever. Go have fun. It's your money. It's not my problem. But I think the seed QR spec is actually really good for you to transfer seeds from one device to another. Ideally, the seeds would be encrypted, right? So it would be really cool if there was a Hacks QR that represents a encrypted seed from say, for example, you have your Blue Wallet or something, right? And you want to transfer your seed to a new phone because you're going to dispose that phone, and you want to scan it. So maybe that would be a good case scenario, right? It's better than displaying the words on screen and having to type them.
Sure.
So there is a use case. That's why I kind of like the idea that this was invented. It just needs massaging. I think you'd be useful.
Yeah, I mean, like that's fair. Like if it's I've got my phone wallet with my pocket money, and I want to, like, I already kind of think of that as being opportunistically ownable. So I'm going to make it easier to like move around. I think that makes sense. The thing that where I just kind of start scratching my head is it's like if you are, hammering a QR code into a steel plate because this is like your stack, like humans are already bad at holding on to site sensitive cryptographic material, making it machine readable site sensitive cryptographic material that has built-in error correction just seems like you're setting yourself up for a really bad time. But like it's your money. If that's what you want to do, like go nuts.
Yeah, but I think like the biggest issue that I take is that like it becomes a bit of a religion on how people treat these projects because they are sort of like, it's like they have the right spirit, right? I mean, people have the heart in the right place.
Yeah.
Right? Like people want to make cheaper wallets. People want to make it so that people can do it themselves, right? And people feel like they have a superpower, like installing the OS on a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
I get it. But the bad guys don't give a flying fuck about your feelings, right? And like coins will once projects like that, because it's still a tiny install base, right? So like and it's lower economical value too because it's obvious. So like the incentives are not quite there yet, but eventually the incentives will be there,
Yeah.
right? And there's literally nothing preventing like AliExpress suppliers of Raspberry Pis from having evil firmware on it that you can't flash, trying to steal people's money or generate bad private keys because the memory is shared. Anyways, there's so many bad things to this. I enjoy the project for education. I think it's a huge win. I think it's great for developing countries. I just think that suggesting people with their life savings use these things with some of this ways, it's a terrible idea. All right, BDK version 1.0-alpha.9 updated dependencies Rust Bitcoin to version 0.31 and Rust Miniscript to version 11. Wrap transactions as ARC transactions, introduce prop testing, starting with checkpoint range.
That's cool. I think more Bitcoin projects need property testing.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Always a huge fan of BDK.
Yeah, BDK is awesome.
I mean, they are like running a tight shop there. It's very good work. And they are a foundation. They take donations, by the way.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Rob, are you able to update to Rust Bitcoin 31 yet?
Yes. This is the grace of, I think we're going to be live in, I'm going to call it 2 months from now. So we're still in a state where we get to liberally kind of push these updates and run our checks since we don't have to worry about any cross compatibility with old wallets. But we're on this version of BDK Alpha right now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we're in Rust Bitcoin dependency hell where Fediment's on 0.29, LDK is on 0.30, and now like Rust Noster and BDK are on 31.
Yeah.
So I've just kind of stopped updating dependencies until they all get to the same one because it's getting ridiculous.
That is always the right answer. Don't update. That's my motto.
Yeah. No, I mean like that's what we're doing. Like I think we're pinned to 29 right now, and like I'm just not updating until there's something that I need, and then I'll deal with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Makes sense. I'll be there very soon.
Umbrel version 1.1.0 terminal. Execute custom commands in Umbrel OS. Umbrel OS beta program. Start, stop troubleshooting apps directly. And when app is updating, its progress now displaying within the app icon. By the way, they changed their hardware. They run proper Intel now inside, no longer on the Raspberry Pi.
Well, they still support the Raspberry Pi, but the hardware that they sell is like a NUC or something.
Yeah. Raspiblitz version 1.11.0, Raspberry Pi 5 tested and enabling NVMe PCIe hats.
Oh, that's nice.
BTC Pay server, Postgres database, backup, restore options. I haven't seen Postgres with SQL put on the end of the word in a long time. Reset option for self-signed TLS certificates, Web UI, Electrum Connect screen. BISC version 2, updated. Ledger app Bitcoin, new version 2.2.2. Taproot miniscript now recognize if key is probably unspendable. Labeling on screen dummy during registration. Message signing will now show the full text of the message.
Which is huge, like the provable unspendable path. Like we're launching with pay to witness script hash, and one of those big UX things was that if you have the key path, you want to know for a fact that that key is unspendable. So I think the COLDCARD was first to do this and show that the key path is provably unspendable. And what you're doing is you're basically combining it with the fingerprints that are in the wallet. So you take a point to basically just like make it not spendable, but each person's quorum and wallet will have a different public key path to kind of make it look so anonymous and not linking them. But to be able to have the hardware wallet verify, hey, there isn't like some sort of secret backdoor, like one of n key path that can rug the whole thing. Because it doesn't matter what you're doing on the script path. If the key path, if you can execute that, then that's a valid transaction. So that's a great UX update for being able to use more advanced scripting with Taproot.
Blockstream. Oh, I had something for you. We are two things are happening. We merged Q and Mk4 codebases. It's not public yet, but it's coming. And the second thing is we're gonna have a way very soon, somewhat soon, to bring the Schnorr stuff into main firmware. We just haven't figured out which path we're going to take. Maybe it's like in a hidden menu, or we're not quite there yet in terms of comfort. But I figured that...
Exciting.
Yeah, other wallets might be feeling that way too. It's just such a ginormous diff, man. Like, it feels so scary. Exactly.
I mean, I've always had a lot of respect for how you and Doc kind of handle the conservative approach and kind of segmenting those things out, because it's people's money, it's their life savings. You want to be really careful about bringing in a whole new, signing scheme into the hardware for like general purpose use. So it's not a position I envy for sure.
Yeah. Blockstream Green Qt version 2.0.4 BIP 39 passphrase login. Handle external BIP 21 payments on macOS and Windows. Support signing message with software wallet. When PSBT Labelbase version 2.1.0, new extension attachments, PDF and image viewer, show background task activity indicator on Electrum. And so for Rijndael, this is the Labelbase. It's that project that does the BIP 329 labels syncing. Blue Wallet version 6.6.2 slide up animation for float button. 6.6.1 did not start analytics native code if disabled. I guess it was. If the maintainers are listening, I'd love to see that GitHub issue for barbecue QR. That was a little bit of a discussion. Get started. That would be very helpful. We have a lot of customers who use Blue Wallet. Bitcoin Keeper version 1.2.3 fee insight with detailed analysis, multiple mediums possible with any signer, ability to hide delete wallet vaults. Wasabi Wallet version 2.0.7 new user interface, Trezor Safe 3 support for RBF detection. I wonder how the Wasabi folks are dealing and handling. I know they're lawyered up long ago. Part of the reason why they had the chain analysis on the input. I'd be very curious to know. 10.10.1 version 2.2 now. Version 2.2.1 now. AgoraDesk version 1.1.34. Swiss Bitcoin Pay version 2.0.8. I don't know what this is. Playbook release. Bull Bitcoin launches fee multiple. Technical indicator representing current Bitcoin network fees comparing to historical averages. Kraken launches a Kraken wallet, open source multi-chain wallet on iOS. That's interesting. I imagine it's probably of decent quality. Have you guys tried this Kraken wallet at all?
No, I didn't even see it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm actually very curious now.
Yeah.
They have a decent team
They
there.
say it has no client-side tracking. I'm skeptical, but that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, it's open source, right? So, I mean, we could know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always hard to know what's deployed on the store, but still.
Yeah.
Project Spotlight, Wizardines release Safety Net, an option disaster recovery service with Liana. It still requires pre-signed transactions and all the UTXO rotation problems.
Well, it definitely has UTXO rotation problems because you have a time lock element, but I don't think this isn't their revault where it's using pre-signed. I think it's just using miniscript.
Okay.
Like, so you could have it be a 2 of 3, my 2 of 3, whatever, right? And then let's say a year goes by, you can make it a 2 of 4. So you can bring a new key into the group to sign and move the money.
Yeah.
Your point, though, which is right, is that you have a liveliness thing. Since there's a relative time lock, you have to move the money X amount of blocks to make sure that you reset the level of security.
Yep.
Yeah, I was talking to Kevin about this in Madeira, and it's pretty cool because it's like the way they built it is I can have you as part of like, my last final callback, but you don't have to know it all. You just post that public key somewhere, and you only know if I need you at the disaster scenario. So
talking about Kevin, when this came out, a lot of people were sort of giving him some shit on Twitter for making the interaction over USB. And Kevin was sort of like he was under the impression that air gap, due to some I think the Bitbox wrote an article on like air gap not being that useful, which is complete full of shit marketing. But I think like he didn't know that most hardware wallets are programmed on the same chip through the USB. So like a lot of software guys are unaware that the same MCU that has all the code for Bitcoin stuff is also how you program the hardware wallet. It's not a separated system.
Yeah.
It's not a subsystem. So yeah, it's hard, and yet it's like extremely unlikely that something could happen. However, if a bug is there, or if somebody does find an exploit, that is how you get this stuff out. It's essentially full dev access if that is open. It's pretty brutal. So one more point for don't use USB for hardware signers.
I keep saying that more software people should tinker with hardware. Now it's important to like know your limits and like not put yourself in a position where you're going to like burn all your shit down. But for two reasons. One of them is I think it like gives you an appreciation for, hardware stuff is just like a different model. But also it can be really cathartic. Like I find a lot of times it's like you're fighting super abstracted, like abstractions on abstractions on abstractions with like modern software development. And then when you go start like writing, free RTOS code or something, it's like, oh, if my code doesn't work, then the light doesn't come on. And it, being down closer is a different set of problems, and it can be really useful. So I don't know. I think more software people should tinker.
Ultimate Grug, light no, turn on.
Yeah, I mean, it does give you a whole appreciation for memory management.
That too. It's very Grug brain. You're like, light don't turn on, code don't work.
Yeah.
That's why, I now call our industry the caveman industry, like us hardware people. We're a lot simpler. Centrum, Rust daemon that monitors watch only Bitcoin address, Bitcoin wallets. Interesting. ZK Coins, novel blockchain design with strong privacy and scalability properties. ISMYHC announces Basio, a free Bitcoin statistics app. Theme your favorite retro style. TX Pusher, a conditional transaction broadcasting tool. Oh, I know TX Pusher.
Yeah, it's been around for a while. Really useful.
Yeah, it helps with timing analysis when you push your transaction out. Launch of Satoshi, that's the 7B model that Svetsky launched. It's essentially like, have you guys used it?
Yeah.
It's essentially talking to Svetsky.
Yeah, it literally is talking to Svetsky.
Like, it's like It's hilarious. It's like a men's rights sort of like full on Svatsky sort of model. It's hilarious.
But automated.
Automated.
Yeah.
It's a full, yeah.
Yeah, so it can respond when Svatsky is sleeping.
Yeah, so if you ever needed Svatsky's opinion on girlfriend issues, you should definitely ask this AI.
You should have it pitch companies for you. That'd be great.
Shark Tank tips. Oh yeah, talking about I mean, we should definitely say that on the show. Like, if you have a chance, go look at Svatsky's Shark Tank appearance. It is absolutely amazing. The fact that he managed to keep that cool on that, and this is many years ago. It's highly recommended. Every time I watch it, I have to watch it 2-3 times. Safe Miner, hardware design, project focused on enhancing safety for Bitcoin mining operations. Okay. SimpleX has an update. Lightning, Bandit, Carman. Do you want to take on the mutiny updates?
Yeah. Looking at these, nothing too major. Basically, like, we had this big release with like Lightning Address and a redesign, and now we've just been squashing all the bugs that people keep finding. So nothing too major as of yet, but yeah, a lot of nice functionality improvements, and like all the bugs should be gone hopefully by now.
It looks like you guys are trimming down your WASM footprint a bit. Is that just hygiene? Is it binary size? Like, what's the driver there?
It was basically just like, we're doing a bunch of refactors coming up soon, and we're just removing stuff that we don't want to have to like be part of the refactor because it was just unused. Yeah, our binary size is, it's like, I forget what it's at, but I think it's between like 12 and 20 or something, so it's not terrible.
That's not bad.
But yeah,
I'm waiting on my native app.
One day.
Mutiny Start OS.
Yeah, same thing. It's on there now. I guess I need to do the latest release on there, but yeah.
Cool.
Well, feedback on Mutiny is I did not get an automatic push for my Mutiny Plus, so I had to manually just click it right now.
Let's do customer support. Let's go through all the
open up our issues.
Just right here. I felt a little like down this morning, and I realized I was lacking smug satisfaction. So now I'm back to normal again. We're good.
That's good. I'm glad to hear. Yeah, I'll take a look at that. We haven't touched that in forever, so normally it works, but
it's with the UX refresh. Usually I used to get just like a push like, hey, this is up for renewal. Do you want to pay it? But the new UX, I don't see it there. I had to go digging in my settings to find it.
Okay.
All right. Phoenix Android version 2.2.2. And Phoenix D version 0.1.4. A lot of people are starting to look into Phoenix D. Apparently a big deal. They're carrying Lightning. Nutshell version 0.15.3. Updated. Zeus version 0.9.0-alpha. You can now use signing devices to open and close channels. It's very interesting. I want to see with Tap Signer, because that you could have in your wallet to sort of like, tap and do it. With COLDCARD and seed signing and the stuff, like I don't. It's not the same. What else? Albi JS SDK updated. Aqua Wallet updated. eNuts updated, like this one, version 0.4.0-beta. Great little app for your eCash learning experience. Fountain version 1.0.12. Boats Exchange updated. Loop version 0.28.1. Project Spotlight. So LN address D. Few sats, monetize your files, data and API using L402 protocol. I don't know how I feel about the L402 protocol. I kind of feel like it's unnecessary in a way.
This is for payment code 402, right? So charging for packet requests.
Yeah, that's right. But it doesn't really use 402. It's just its own thing. So I'm not quite sure how I feel about it.
Do you guys use it at all for Unleashed?
No, for Unleashed, we're using a custodial node solution that then we generate an invoice. We give you the invoice.
And like Unleashed, you have like an account model, right? So like
Mhm.
you top up your balance, and then every time you
Yes.
query the LLM, it hits your balance.
The problem is we can't pre-know how much you're going to spend in generation to charge you because we're doing metered,
Yep.
right? Because then it's like fair.
Yep.
So we can't generate and then do gift wrap.
Yeah.
Because then we lose money if you don't pay, right? So it's unclear. We're going to test a few more things. Maybe there's a path in the middle. But it's surprising. There's like, I don't know, 3,100 users now. And like people are depositing sats and using it. I didn't think it was going to move that fast. Because, like GPT is really good. But, having repos imported and all that shit really seems to do the trick. Constellation, a layer 3 protocol to enhance Lightning Network.
I met the guy that made this at Advancing Bitcoin. He tried to explain it to me while we were eating tacos. It's basically just like Fedimint, but different and galaxy brained. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay.
Callie keeps trying to tell us that Cashew is not layer 3, and somebody else calling Fedimint by galaxy brained a layer 3 is not helping his case.
Nope.
I mean, it's called Constellation, so
yeah.
No. All right, Nostr software releases NDK version 2.8. The updated Rust Nostr updated, Primo updated. I'm actually pretty excited because I'm running a test flight that has the Zap highlights for Nostr.
Oh, cool.
I think that's a game changer for engagement on Nostr. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So like you can see like right under your comments, let me show you guys how much people paid you for.
Oh, that's cool.
Dude, like it's one of those dumb things, like how like Facebook invented the thumbs up,
Yeah.
And Twitter had the retweet kind of thing. Like,
yeah,
this is like, it's so satisfying.
Yeah.
It's like people essentially like bidding Dutch auction. Well, it's not really a Dutch auction because you can see the price, but people are bidding on being like on your real estate.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting thing.
Well, it turns every message into a leaderboard, right? And like that's what people want. Like they want to be on top of the leaderboard.
Exactly. It seems very satisfying.
It's like a new social signaling mechanism of like.
Exactly. Totally is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I was a top zapper on this thing, and that means I cared the most or whatever.
And I think they're gonna write a NIP for it, so it's like consistent across clients as well.
Nice.
And clients are gonna have different treatments on how to display this stuff. I think it's really neat. I like these things that are like unique to Nostr.
Yeah.
Right, like the Zap.
Mm-hmm.
And now this stuff is like, it makes the value add like a lot more interesting.
It makes the zaps a lot more like upfront too, where you can like recognize them versus like before it's just like a like counter.
And you can do the opposite for the posts you don't like and people you're not into. Like you should just have a button that's like mute all, like who are related to that post.
Absolutely.
Dumbest latest test flight for Purple members released. Amethyst release, Nostr release, Nos Social release, Gossip, Link Nostr, and Mostro. It seems like every single Nostr project is updated by the next show. Project Spotlight is Blossom. This is super, super cool. It's a way for you to essentially not decentralize, but decentralize the procurement of the picture or binary data that you're trying to show on a node. I'm probably butchering the explanation, but so essentially like you have a hash and then different servers could have a hosting of that image for you to display in case one of those servers that host images go away, because Nostr nodes don't have binary data ideally. I'm full for putting base 58 images on kind one, but I don't think people are gonna like that. Base 58 maxi here. Anyway, so that's cool. One more thing that is not here because it's not the NIP is not public yet. Double ratchet algo for DMs on Nostr is coming. It is a different take on signals double ratchet algo, which is great. I'm not super familiar with theirs, so I was not I didn't have the qualifications to review it, but I think this is great. This solves most of the problem. It's client specific.
Okay.
And hopefully people implement it the same way, and then that's it.
It's got to do some part of the handshake not over Nostr, though, right?
I can't remember.
Okay. I'll have to read it when it comes out.
But no, actually, no, you can. You totally can.
Okay.
Because so with OTR, you assume that the channel is going to get owned, right? So it's all ephemeral key. So once you send a key, right, and then you use the next key, and then if you lose the first key, you're no longer compromised, right? So so if you had a part of that conversation that was with one client and that client gets owned, you don't lose the rest. So no, it shouldn't be a problem. That's the whole double ratcheting.
Double ratchet
part of the algo. Super cool, super gray beard tack, which is proven. I love it.
Yeah, I mean OTR has been around for like 20 years at this point. Like it's really well.
It might be more.
Yeah.
Adium was using for IRC. DMs way back. Yeah, it really is a great piece of tech. Anyways, boosts. Oh, actually, sorry guys. Is there any other updates that I may have missed on the software update list that you guys feel like we should have mentioned?
Holy shit! The Versat sold for 33 Bitcoin.
Yep, the auction just closed like 5 minutes ago.
Yep.
That's insane.
Wait, the Bitcoin sign?
No, the epic sat, the halving sat, the ordinal fairy
God,
stuff.
Yes, I am so Jesus Christ. It's okay. I mean, like, people were entitled to waste their money.
The Bitcoin sign guy sign sold for 16 Bitcoin.
Yeah, I know. It got to 100. Somebody fat fingered that, and then it dropped to 10. So yeah, thanks for the boosters, Vake. Bitcoin is boring and nothing's happening. That is so true. QXOTK, sleepwalking on grass and listening to this pod. I'm glad you enjoy our group therapy. JC Denton, thanks for the signal, listening to the end. Bullshit, nobody listens to the end.
No one listens to the end. No one does.
Dubravko, this is my boost to celebrate. Still thinking 15 minutes in making it to the software review. Also big fan of Harry since 2020. Keep on keeping on. Yeehaw. Contillionaire, merge, fridge, apple. Can't remember what that one was about. Michael Mataluf. Love the conversation you have on here. Thanks, gents. Cheers. All right, as usual, sign up for the Bitcoin OpTech newsletter, which we will likely skip most of it, but I like to have it here. It is on our newsletter, and if you care about Bitcoin and you want to understand Bitcoin, Bitcoin OpTech is probably the best resource. Anything on the Bitcoin OpTech that we should bring it up, or we already did about the BIP editors?
Resetting testnet, people are talking about.
Yep.
Or testnet 4, basically, with like fixing the block storms. Should be nice. But we'll see if that actually happens.
Cool. On the news and noteworthy, I think it's worth mentioning the Nunchuck has their new service. It's they don't have to have a key. I like this race starting to pick up again, where Nunchuck, Unchained, Kaza, Liana, they're all sort of trying to come up with like better solutions for inheritance or just funds management. It is a problem. We don't have good solutions. These are the least worst solutions. I feel like we still need to do a lot better in this sense. So yeah, we're going somewhere as long as people keep on trying. What else? LND node operators advised to upgrade to Bitcoin 27. Meet Premier Bitcoin launches 2024 edition to their 10-week education program. Craig Wright discontinues tulip trading case in major win for Bitcoin developers. He's so fucked. This dude is gonna probably go to jail, and it's gonna be glorious. He's already destitute. Apparently, the guy doesn't have any money, so like it's not like you can take that from him. Lightning Zapright introduces the mutiny connection. Voltage integrates mutiny NAT.
Yeah.
Mutiny is everywhere. It's a mutiny.
Hell yeah. Yeah. It was nice for these. We didn't have to do any work. Like apparently they already had it for Zapright. They already had like integration with Lightning addresses, so they just like added a nice logo up for us basically, and it just worked. And then yeah, Voltage has
Cool.
been working on MutinyNet for a while, and luckily they got that out. So that's been fun. Found some bugs in L&D with that.
Braiins introduces Lightning payouts. There is no other way really anymore to pay the small fractions to your pool. Blockstream launches Liquid Wallet Kit. Business and finance, we're completely uninterested. Block did launch announced the 3 nanometer.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big fucking deal because that's latest nanometer tech. There is no other way to do that unless you're an $80 billion publicly traded company. It's pretty awesome.
Right.
OpenSats announced a bunch of long-term support funding. HRZ 149. Stuart Bowman and Pablo. The Human Rights Foundation established the Finney Freedom Prize. Neutron Pay secure $1.5 million in funding. And yeah, I mean, we talked about much of this stuff. Ocean announces a white paper of their Tides payout system. You know what's interesting about Ocean, for all the hate and drama that's related to the project? They are one of the best template payouts in the business, even excluding all the shit. It's a shame that there is so much.
Because they don't pay fees. They don't charge fees.
No, they just the template construction. They really optimize for payouts in a way that.
Well, and like they're still getting higher fees because all the like degen stuff pushes up the fees of everything else, right? And because like it's still a common mempool, despite everybody's best efforts. Yeah, I mean, like Ocean's doing some interesting stuff with Tides, and then I really hope that they're just working super hard on like Stratum V2.
Same. Yeah.
Like the stuff that they want to do with like Lightning payouts is great. The stuff that they want to do with Tides is awesome. I just wish that they would like leave the virtue signaling behind and just like focus on decentralizing mining. Like that's the thing that I think is most interesting about what they're doing.
It's deep there, man. It's not virtuous. Like they are really religious about that stuff. No pun intended.
I believe they believe it. It just would be a lot. Completing their mission, it doesn't matter what Ocean's opinion is and what goes into a block template anyway. If the ultimate mission is decentralized mining, Stratum V2, them not picking a block template is like the ultimate way to get to that goal.
See, my recommendation was if you want to be a quote unquote censor, be the biggest one first, and then you impose your will.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
Yeah.
Which is a valid strategy. I mean, like, like it or don't. Like, I mean, it's a strategy, right?
It's a growth strategy.
I just see the current ordinals hate as like their marketing of just now everyone, we're talking about them all the time because of this shit.
Yeah, it's great marketing.
I know, but it's not intended as marketing. Trust me. Like
I know that.
I highly recommend spending some time talking to their team members. It's deep.
Oh, I have. Yeah.
I mean, I tried to, and then they all blocked me. But yeah, like they definitely believe it.
Yeah. Anything else here?
Oh, FBI probing core dev. That was really big.
Yeah, but also unsurprising kind of thing. Like it's like they have access to meat bags, right? Like they have access to your bodies, even though it's not on the blockchain. If you go to a physical space in a certain jurisdiction, it is their purview. So it's pretty brutal. Not cool. I wonder if the foreigners who went to the meetup, they can pretty much say fuck you once they're back. They could maybe encounter issues returning, but I doubt it. I don't know. Talk to a lawyer. Anything else here that is worth talking about? I think we did it, folks. I think we went through a list. It was a long list. There were some difficult, dark topics.
Nothing's happening in Bitcoin.
Nothing's happening.
Nothing. No, nobody's listening anymore. You can say whatever you want. Any secrets? So, guys, listen. Thank you so much for donating 2 hours of your time to do group therapy and review Bitcoin projects. It's always a pleasure. And any final thoughts, Mr. Rob?
Final thoughts. I guess if you're going to be in the area, check out Bitcoin Plus Plus next week in Austin. It's going to be a really great time. I know I'm going to be there. I think Rijndael is going to be there. Ben, I'm not sure if you're going to be in the area. I think we're having a really great time talking about fun things building on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin Plus Plus is like my favorite tech conference of the year. The hackathon, everyone's just kind of shipping code, doing live demos. It's a really exciting time. So go check out Bitcoin Plus Plus if you're in the Austin area next week.
Mr. Rijndael.
Yep. Come check out Bitcoin Plus Plus. Should be a lot of fun. Really happy that we're able to sponsor it this year. Like super, super happy to support everybody working on Bitcoin and doing whatever you want on Bitcoin. Like it's open permissionless technology. So whatever you want to do with it, like thrilled you're playing with it. And then just one more shill for CATVM.org. Go read our children's book. It's great. You'll love it.
I heard you guys are going to barbecue a cat at the conference.
Oh my God.
Not this time.
I mean,
I was talking to Lisa. She said we might be short on food.
missed opportunity here, dude, to start a rumor.
Well, nobody's listening anymore. You have to start the rumor at the start of the show, not the end of the show.
That is true. Mr. Carman.
I'll be at Bitcoin Plus Plus as well. So go there, spend all your money. It'll be fun. Otherwise, I don't know. Always bullish.
So this was the Bitcoin Plus Plus pre-show?
Yes.
Yeah. We didn't tell you, but yeah, thanks for coming to our Bitcoin Plus Plus podcast.
Listen, guys, again, thank you so much. Privacy is not a crime. I'll close with that.
That's right.
Everybody have a great day. Thanks for listening. For more resources, check the show notes. We put a lot of effort into them. And remember, we don't have a crystal ball, so let us know about your project. Visit bitcoin.review to find out how to get in touch.